All right, everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of Endo Warriors. I'm Callie.
And I'm Jamie.
And today we have Julia on the show, and we're so excited to have her. So, Julia, welcome to Endo Warriors. And why don't you start out by telling us your endo story?
Okay, thank you for having me. So, my journey started when I was about 11 years old. That's when I started my first period. Right off the bat, my first period was painful, and every year it just kind of got worse. I had to take Advil. Just starting at 11 years old, I would have to stay home from school, lay in bed. And of course, I thought that was normal. So around 14, that's when I had my first ruptured cyst. I remember I was running on the football field and I wasn't even on my period. So that's how I knew something was wrong. And then I felt this sharp stabbing pain and I just had to lay flat on the floor. And I was with friends and I didn't say anything because I didn't really know what was going on. And so I ended up getting an ultrasound. And then that's when the doctor told me that I have cysts that just come and go. So then from there on out, I thought that my bad pain was cysts. But I was still a little confused. But over time, my period just kept getting worse and worse. So I started getting ultrasounds every single year. Of course, they said that it was normal. Some women just have worse periods than others. When you have kids, it'll be fine. When I'm 13, 14 years old, hearing that, just learning how that even happens, it was very confusing for me. And that's when they started offering birth control. And I was so young and I didn't really even know what it was. So right off the bat, my mom just said no. And then over years, as my period kept getting worse, my mom was like, is this something you want to look into? Because if it's really going to help. And this was when I was about 18 or 19, actually. And every time I heard about it, I just got nervous because I wasn't understanding. They weren't giving me a solution to the problem. They were just saying, oh, it's going to help you. And I was like, okay, but what happens when I get off?
Hmm.
I was not understanding what happens when I get off. I can't stay on birth control forever. And they're like, well, hopefully it'll be fine. And then you'll have kids and then it'll feel better. And I wasn't really understanding what was going on. And I remember I got the pack when I was 19. And this is when my periods really went from like 100 to 200. And so I opened the pack and saw the side effects and it was so big. And I was like, I'm not doing that. So I threw it away because I got so scared and I didn't want to go on it, you know? Then I started going to the hospital. This was in 2023. I was always take 800 of Advil every 6 hours, alternating with 1,000 milligrams of Tylenol every 6 hours. This was my periods for years, every single period. And then when I was 20 years old, in 2023, I started going to the hospital in May, June, July. I was like, okay, so something's not okay because now my pain was when I'm ovulating. And then on random days too, I finally went to a gynecologist and she's just told me you need to go on birth control. She said that all your tests are normal. And she said, your only option is to go on birth control or you're going to be in pain. I was like, well, this is my doctor telling me this. I don't have another choice, even though I was just scared to do it. And so I went on birth control and it literally made my pain go like my symptoms were every single day now. It made it 100 times worse. I had 3 periods every single month and it wasn't even, I don't know why, but it just made everything so much worse. I think the endo just reached its limit that anything that I
Yeah,
tried was just making it worse.
sure.
So then I went on the birth control for about 2 or 3 months and I was still going to the ER even when I wasn't on my period. I remember going to the ER and they're like, oh, you're on your period. And I was like, no, I'm having period pain and I'm not on my period. And I was crying and I'm taking tramadol at this point. And then I started taking oxycodone and then coating with Tylenol several times a month. Meanwhile, I don't want to, of course, because that's not good at all. You know, that's scary. So
Mhm.
I started taking it several times a month and then each one stopped helping me. Even when I would go to the hospital, I went one time, I wasn't on my period and they gave me the IV, they gave me morphine and they're like, this goes right to your bloodstream. It should help in 15 minutes. She came back and I was like I need more. This is not helping me. And then after 45 minutes, they gave me 2 more painkillers and it wasn't helping me. And then I started to feel like this is terrifying because at this point I was confused on how I was still alive while enduring that much pain. That's every time I have a flare up, I feel like I'm going to die or I feel like I'm going to pass out or something. I'm not understanding how I'm capable of being conscious while being in so much pain. I usually get a fever when I have a flare up. My fever goes up. I'm sweating and there's nothing I can do because medication didn't help me anymore. I was like, oh, this is how my life's going to end because I literally felt that. And then I told my gynecologist, this birth control's not helping me. I'm in the hospital. What am I supposed to do? She replied back, her assistant or something like that, and said, have you tried using a heating pad and taking Advil? And then it said, okay, if it gets worse, go to the ER. And I was like, I'm here. They told me to message you because this is your job to figure out. Of course, if I need extra help, go to the ER. But, then I called and had a fit. Then I saw her the next morning and she gave me Orlissa. She was like, get off of the birth control. And she talked to me about Orlissa. And I didn't know that was my first time hearing about it. She mentioned the word endometriosis at 20 years old. That was my first time hearing the word endometriosis. Meanwhile, I have no idea what it is. She explained a little bit and she goes, you need to take Orlissa or you can be in pain. And that is completely up to you because surgery is not an option for you. She said, because your goal, she talked about fertility. She said, your goal, you want to have children in the future. Surgery is going to mess with that because you're so young. And so immediately I started freaking out because my goal in life is to have children one day. I just got so confused. She said, Orlissa is basically induced menopause. And then I literally started crying. I was like, what about the side effects of anxiety and depression? And and my mom was with me. She looks at me and she goes, well, you don't look too happy anyways right now. That's what she said. And I was just not, yeah, I was just like, wow,
Wow.
how can you say that to a
Is this the
20?
same gynecologist that you've saw since you were 14?
No, I never saw a gynecologist when I was 14. It was just
Oh,
regular doctors that offered me the birth control.
So your
'Cause I
primary care
didn't
physician never
Yes.
suggested, so was your primary care physician giving you your annuals?
Yeah. Every time we would bring up that my periods are getting worse, they just said, take ibuprofen, take Midol. They just kept upping the dosage of medication or trying new things. And those helped a little bit. But I'm going to be honest, I wasn't even taking them all the time because I didn't want to take so much Advil. That's not good for you, especially for 10 years.
So I have a
So,
question, because I find it really interesting. Growing up, I didn't know that a primary care physician do annuals. It was when you got your period, you went to an OBGYN. So it's interesting. You're now, I think, the second or third person who Jamie and I have talked to
mhm.
who didn't go and see an OBGYN until they were in their 20s. So I'm curious, like, if that was by choice, is it that you didn't know any different, your mom and dad didn't know any different, or the reasoning behind not going to see an actual OB when you got your period?
I didn't even know what that was. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
We never talked about it with my mom or anything like that. I was told that you don't even need to see one until you're older. I don't know why, but the doctor didn't really think it was a big deal. I've actually had a couple doctors told me not to go on birth control, which that also put a big scare in my head. Well, if a doctor is telling me not to, then there must be something
Sure.
wrong. But yeah, no, I don't remember any of them suggesting to go to an OB.
I just find it interesting. I think it's good for listeners to hear that, everybody comes from a different background culturally, religiously, even
Hmm.
demographically. And I was the complete opposite. So for you, you go to a gynecologist. Like
Yeah.
when somebody tells me, and I don't know about you, Jamie, but when somebody tells us that they haven't seen a gyno until they're in their 20s, I'm like, that's mind boggling to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I think I started seeing one whenever I was 14 or
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
yeah.
See,
Same.
that's
I
like
was
that's
13.
different for me.
I know, but that's why I think it's really interesting, and I think it's a good conversation to have because who knows
Yeah.
who's listening out there who might not know that there's an option. You don't have to stay with a primary. You can go and see an
Yeah.
OB as young as your first period or even before.
I didn't
So,
even yeah, I also think you're right, like, culturally and depending on things like that, that's another reason why I started advocating was because I'm Middle Eastern, so it's not really talked about. Thank God my mom was very understanding and vocal and helping me as much as she knew. You
mhm,
know what I mean? But I think it's very hard because in some cultures you don't talk about periods. And I
No.
and I get there's a certain of course I respect all religions and cultures, but
mhm.
I get there's a certain like way to speak about things. Of course, I grew up in a different culture so it wasn't even I never even talked about it with my friends until 2 years later because you don't talk about it. I spoke about it with my mom and aunts and things like that, but like, with my dad, never. So I think that's why it's also very important that social media is out there so girls and women who aren't able to speak about things, they see it online because
Yeah.
they might not be comfortable speaking to their parents. They might
Mhm.
not feel they're able to. And that's another reason why I started. I was blessed with great parents who helped me out. And my mom was the reason I got the surgery. She did everything. She went on Facebook groups. She was
I
doing
love
all
that.
that she could. But I do know a lot of people who brush it under the rug because it's not a
It's not
topic that
yeah,
you
like in the
yes.
South, you don't talk about that stuff. It's not
Yeah.
etiquette.
No.
It's not, polite. You
You're
don't
you're hiding your tampons up your sleeve or, shoving it in your pocket, inconspicuously. How did you get to the point of I need surgery? Like where did your thought process change from okay, this person's telling me or Alyssa or birth
Mhm.
control and then, I know you had surgery. So how did you get to that point?
The moment she offered Orlissa, that's when I was like, no way. I threw it in the trash. I didn't take it. I got off the birth control because this isn't helping. The birth control made me feel worse. I'm going to be honest. I had a point where I gave up because I thought that I was crazy. I remember I was in the biggest flare up and my mom looked at me and she said, "This is what I looked like when I gave birth to you." That's actually what she said to me. I was screaming and crying on the floor and I remember another time I was by myself, I texted her, I said, "Am I crazy?" I literally thought that I was making up my pain in my head. And then my mom started doing research. She's like, there's specialists, there's endometriosis specialists, let's go see one. And I was like, no, they're going to say the same thing. They're going to do tests. And I was over it because I was like, no one's going to help me. Then I ended up seeing a specialist in Los Angeles and it was a 90-minute consultation. I went with my aunt. She was asking me questions, and I was like, oh, the normal. And she looked like, that's not normal. She was the first doctor to actually say, this is a problem. And she told me about endometriosis. She's an excision specialist. And so we were talking. She did exams and things like that. And she was like, based off of everything you've told me, I can tell you that you have endometriosis
so
almost 100%.
what did it feel like when you were seen and validated and you were sitting across from a doctor that believed you? Did it feel like weight had been lifted? I think people are really shocked
Hmm.
when they get the news that it's kind of anticlimactic. It's like,
I honestly, I felt uncomfortable. I felt confused because women go through years, 15 years, however many years of pain. And then just within one doctor's visit, they're being told that all this stuff is wrong. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. My whole life just changed
mhm,
from me trying to find answers to learning to live in pain every single day to here's one not completely full solution, but here's an answer to
sure.
what's going on. I didn't know what to think. I was in denial, if I'm going to be honest, so much that I needed a second opinion because I just wanted to make sure.
And that's not a bad thing. We
Yeah.
always say you should get a second opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's when I got my second opinion. I went to Palo Alto with Dr. Najat and he did an ultrasound and then he was like, okay, you need surgery. Can you come 4 weeks from now? And I was like, hold on. My ears started ringing. I almost fainted. They had to stop everything and get me Gatorade. I started blacking out almost. That's when I was like, okay, I need to do this.
Shout out to Dr. Najat.
I
Yeah.
know. I love
We
him.
love him.
We love all of them, all
We love
three of
all of
them.
them. They did my sister's surgery, and we love them. So
I know.
Yeah,
anybody
and
listening,
they're super supportive of this community and thing that we have set, whether it's on the policy side or just seeing a patient, it's never been a no. We need more people like that. But I also want to touch on the mental health. You were thinking you were crazy. Is this all in my head? Everyone's telling you you're fine. This is normal. You need to take birth control. If you don't, then you're just going to have to live with the pain. And then you're living with the pain. And we now know with studies that pain is altering our brain.
Exactly.
Essentially, like how, just pretty much everything. I want to say more often than not, yes, having it's whiplash. One doctor's visit, you're being dismissed, and then the next one, someone's like, this is what you have, X, Y, and Z. You need surgery. There's no cure. There's no this. All this stuff. It is mental whiplash to the point where I can understand. I don't think passing out or getting the spiders or near vision, I don't think that is out of, a lot of people.
I would actually say that I would say most people, if they felt safe enough to admit it, would say that they had the same experience as you with that.
Yeah. It was just such a moment for me. I didn't even know what to think. I was terrified but thankful at the same time because I was like, finally, but what does this mean? You know?
Did he talk to you about fertility and surgery? Because I'm curious to know if he or you brought up the question, is this going to affect my fertility? Because one doctor told me that I shouldn't get surgery because that would be worse for my fertility.
Yes. So, of course, I brought that up and he said, this can help you because if you're having things going on, you have endometriosis on your ovaries, on, wherever, it can affect it. So it's actually helpful because you're not having anything blocking that area or causing anything to affect fertility. That gave me a relief.
And I want to say for the viewers, a lot of times fertility and endo are very much separated. Everyone's worried about the pain and heavy bleeding and all this stuff. Like they don't worry about the fertility aspect as much as they should. Callie and I were at a conference not too long ago and they were talking about how female factor infertility, if everything with the male is fine, 80% of cases of female factor infertility is endometriosis percent. That's a lot. That is a lot.
It's a massive number.
If you think about how many women are so dismissed and really they only could go start seeing a fertility or really go to their OBGYN whenever they are trying to get pregnant and they're not getting pregnant.
And they tell you to wait a year before you go and actually speak to somebody, which is the fact that is drilled into us so much so that it's like, that's why also took me so long to go and search for another gyno, because I was like, well, it's only been 3 months. We're supposed to wait a year until we go and see somebody.
Yeah.
And that's bullshit. It's such bullshit.
Yeah. Why are we waiting the year? Why aren't we starting the workup? Why we're still trying? Why can't we do the workup? Why we're still trying? Why can't we jump on the ball and get ahead of this? That just blew my mind because so many people that we talk to, they always say nobody has talked to them about their fertility and how it can affect egg quality and all these different things. And I mean, they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, and like somebody who's scared already and, 12, 13, 14, even 18, you're not thinking, okay, I need to preserve and protect my fertility, because you're not thinking about that right now. And you're probably thinking like you, okay, that's in my future. Yes, I'd like to be a mom. But the doctors are not having real conversations with patients about how badly endo can affect egg quality, inflammation within the uterus. Even when it's excised, that doesn't mean that you don't still have inflammation. And why we need to be having these conversations at a younger age, even though that person might not be thinking about kids at the moment.
Yeah.
I can tell you that had a doctor talk to me about it, and I had, at least knowledge is power, right? When we have knowledge, at least we have the information, and then we can do with what we want with that info.
Yeah.
So I think it is a crime that the doctor you saw told you that getting surgery wasn't an option?
I mean, maybe with her, it was
Yeah, I mean,
more hurtful than
honestly, that was probably a good thing. But I mean, this is something obviously like through every story, something comes out of somebody's journey that really stands out to them the most. And
Mhm.
for me, obviously, it is the fact that Endo robbed me of my ability to have kids. And every time Jamie and I speak to somebody, ask them about have they gone and seen a fertility specialist
Mhm.
just to start the conversation. So I'm glad that Dr. Najat talked to you about it.
Yeah.
Once you decided to have the surgery, what was that like? Like, what was it like after the surgery?
Well, I didn't know what to expect. I was in a weird place of I was calm, but I was also freaking out a little bit. Something that was really hard for me as well is my insurance didn't cover me to have my surgery at the
Mm.
hospital. I had it at the surgical center, which I didn't care where I had it. I was like, let me just have the surgery, but I wasn't able to have anyone with me. So
Was
that
it
was
was
during
this during
COVID?
COVID?
no, this was in 2023.
Why weren't you allowed to have anyone with you?
Because it was a, like, small surgical center, like, it wasn't, like, rooms, it was, like, curtains or I don't know.
I've never heard of that. Usually they
Yeah,
allow at least one
you
person.
Because so my you're gonna laugh, my parents dropped me off, of course, they were in the waiting room, but then once I went in to where I was getting prepped and everything, there was no one there, and then I didn't see my parents until after I left, once they picked me up, and I was wheeled out of the building.
so you
Oh,
So I
okay.
woke up by myself, and that was a little, like, terrifying. I
Okay.
have low blood pressure, so I faint easily. I made the nurse hold my hand. I was like, "Please hold my hand. I'm having anxiety." I, like,
Yeah,
made her rub my hand.
all told.
It was my first surgery, like, ever. I remember hearing my dad because I took longer to get out than they expected. I was like, "Am I just high or do I hear my dad trying to enter?" My dad tried to come in through the do not enter. And he was like, "Where's my daughter?" I heard them say, "Sir, you can't come through here." I think my dad started panicking. And I was like, "Am I just high or do I hear my dad trying to come in through where he's not supposed to?" And he said he did because he started freaking out because I was almost fainting every time I stood up. So they had to keep me there a little bit to like get my blood pressure
Sure.
regulated. That was hard for me being alone, but honestly, like, my biggest goal in life is to have children. So that was the only, like, fear going into it,
Hmm.
if I'm gonna be honest, besides, like, what if I lose a kidney or something? I was scared about that too because I was having a lot of bad kidney pain. So when he walked in, I was hearing stage 2, I was hearing wrapped around your both ureters going towards your kidney. You could have lost it if you waited
Wow.
longer. You would have had silent kidney loss if progressed. Thank God I didn't listen to that gynecologist because I would have
yeah,
lost.
I want to throw that out there because whenever you're saying lose a kidney, I'm sure some people listening will be like, okay, that's going to happen. It is
No,
most
I'm
definitely.
serious.
I had both of my ureters were distorted as well. And I had a ton of bladder pain. And if I would lay a certain way, I could almost feel my bladder filling. And then sometimes
Mhm,
I'd be like, why am I not peeing? And then all of a sudden I would have to go and then again, go again in like 5 minutes. I'm like, that is so
mhm.
weird. Of course, they're like, you have interstitial cystitis. And I really don't think I do. But
Yeah,
no, I had it wrapped around my ureters. They were severely distorted. I had to have stents and all of that fun stuff. My surgeon as well was like, you could have had silent kidney loss.
mhm,
And that didn't show up. How do I know? Because radiologists don't necessarily read correctly. But that was never ever said on any of my scans, none of my
mhm.
ultrasounds. Like the most out of whack thing that they would ever say to me on ultrasounds, they'd be like, your bowels have a lot of air. Thank you, but that does nothing
Yes.
for me.
Do
Like,
you see you see these white dots? That's gas.
yeah, cool. I do feel extra gassy right
I'm
now,
like,
so
well,
then
because I haven't
it
shit in a
tracks.
week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm literally full of shit.
Yeah,
But we haven't really pushed on this in many of the pods, but if you are having any weird back pain, weird bladder symptoms or anything, push because
yeah,
I had no idea that
Me
that was
either.
even a thing that I could come out with.
No.
Distorted kidneys. I was reading listening and then later I was reading through it. I was, what does she mean by distorted ureters? So
Like, did you ever have pain going to the bathroom, either when you were peeing or when you were passing a bowel movement? Was that ever a symptom?
Actually, I would pass bowel movements every 4 days, and I thought that was normal. I've always been like that. Not a lot
But
of
was it
pain was
painful? Okay.
not really, not that I can remember, but it was every 4 days for years, and I thought that was normal, but it wasn't. Actually, my bowel was adhered to my uterus and my cervix, and then my right ureter was glued to my right ovary. So all that pain made sense, you know?
And you said your bowels every 4 days. How long was that going on? Since you were a child? How
Pretty much, I think since I was 15.
See, then that just, like, goes to prove the
I didn't
point
know
that,
that
like,
wasn't
a
normal.
lot of a lot of endo patients, their symptoms show up as bowel related before really anything else.
Yep.
And everyone we talk to, like, it proves it even more. Like, I've always had a terrible stomach and
Always.
just from the time I was like, so little, I remember going to birthday parties, eating
Yes.
ice cream and being miserable. And I'm like, why? Like, I'm like 8 years old going to a birthday party and I can't even have full on ice cream cake slice or whatever. So I really think that we need to pay attention to younger girls and not just start putting Miralax in their juice or water in the morning.
Talking more about endo to GI doctors, that a lot of the times it is bowel stuff that shows up before the cramping.
Yeah.
I talked to Najat in Atlanta and we were talking about this because I was like, does IBS even really, is that even a thing? Is fibromyalgia, is that? Because a lot of our endometriosis patients exhibit a lot of fibromyalgia and IBS symptoms. And he was like, no, I agree. You have to have something irritating
Sure.
the back for you to
Yeah.
be having this. And why aren't we saying, oh, it could be lesions, it could be hormones, it could be inflammation. Like there's so many things with endo that could be causing so much irritation.
Yeah.
Like it all starts like clicking and making sense. Like once you start like
too late. That's
too
you
late.
go back once after, I don't know about you, Julia, but like after you go through this process, I think for anybody who finally gets that diagnosis and then gets surgery and becomes super fixated on feeding more about what endo is, how it affects the body, it is like going through a flash drive of memories in your life. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, that's why at 6 years old, or that's why at 13. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I wasn't in the hospital. I wasn't allergic to this. It was a flare up. And that alone, for me, grieving all of that, and for most of my life until I was diagnosed with endo, thought I was allergic. I was told I was allergic to zithromycin when I wasn't. It's a lot to take in for our nervous system, for our mental health. So
Yeah.
while you come out of surgery, you find out that you've got endo pretty severely. What was the healing process afterwards, not just physically, but for you on an emotional and mental level?
I think mentally, I wasn't prepared for how I was going to feel after surgery. I was crying hysterically on and off for a month, and I didn't understand why. I wasn't happy. And then I was mad at myself. Why am I not happy after we finally found the issue? And I was really upset because I just turned 21 and then I had surgery. So I was really upset that I'm 21 years old. I'm having to think about things that kids and fertility and things that I don't want to think about right now. I was just very frustrated that this whole non-curable issue is just thrown at me and I didn't know what to do. At that time, I didn't know about endo community and the Instagram and everything. So I had no one to talk to about it.
So if you had to do it, if you were somebody that just got diagnosed and we were talking to you, what is something that you wish somebody would have talked to you about in terms of, and I want you to peel the onion back and get descriptive, not so much just, oh, I wish somebody would have told me about this, but if you had somebody, what do you wish they would have told you so that you were prepared, if that makes sense?
I wish someone told me that it was normal to feel this way. Just prepared me in the sense where to involve yourself with the community, to be in an endometriosis community, and that it's okay to rest is probably the one most important thing. Because after surgery, I was fighting myself. I didn't want to say no to things. I didn't want to, I was in denial. I wish I learned sooner that you need to rest and you need to work with your body versus against it because you're not the same anymore. And
So it would have been helpful if and I don't want to put words into your mouth. This is something Jamie and I are really trying to do with our company, the Girls Room Project. And it's really helpful for us when we speak to other members of the Endo community on the mental health side, because there is a factor that doesn't get taken into, I think. Finding out that you have endo after years and years of being dismissed, even months, okay? Let's just even back it out to somebody who's been dismissed a couple of months. I agree with you, Julia. I don't think that they talk to you about what we're going to do while we're in surgery, but I don't think that there's enough information or support to prepare the patient for what to expect going into surgery and then after surgery, and what to expect, or you were said, what is normal when it comes to feeling depressed, feeling, okay, why don't I feel better? I'm missing out on all of these activities with friends. And so that was something that Jamie and I, that we want to provide through the Girls Room. If somebody is about to have surgery, or even, on their journey in general, to have somebody that they can talk to be, what should I expect?
Yeah, I think that's something that I genuinely wish I had, because there was no one for me to talk to except my mom, and she had no idea. I feel like I just blacked it out. Everything's a blur. I was just in a mix of terrified. I thought I could go back to living how I was before, and slowly my body just started going down. I was eating healthier and things like that. I thought that surgery was the last thing. I didn't realize it was the beginning of something. That's something that I wish that I was more prepared for. Because, okay, did my surgery. I'm fine now. Last stop. I just
And
have
I
to
think
eat health.
that is a misconception. I think a lot of people think that they're going to go in, have surgery, and come out ready to start doing all the things that they weren't able to do. But here's another aspect of it too that I think about frequently. Not only do we have a lot of medical trauma from being so dismissed, but we also are grieving a part of ourselves differently. Even though I was done having kids, I just felt weird saying,
You're not
yes,
the
I want the
same.
hysterectomy, So we're grieving an old life. We're grieving what we thought our life was going to be. We're grieving you're grieving because your body is not what you thought it was. In a sense, your body failed you in a big way. And then you have trauma. There's so many layers to the mental health of endometriosis that I don't think people really get. A lot of women don't realize that this is a lifelong thing. Even after menopause, it's still a lifelong thing. Honestly, if menopause cured endometriosis, we would all be in menopause. Most of us,
100%.
because I would rather deal with a hot flash than I would the
Well,
horrible.
let's not menopause.
No, we're not. Because I've been with Callie enough to know it's pure hell. Callie, not only does she deal with flare-ups, but she's dealing with menopause on top of it with there's really no one out there with guidance for her. She hears one thing and then someone else tells her the other thing. And, well, yeah, this is safe. But then someone says, well, maybe not really. If you try this, you might have X, Y, and Z. So it's a constant mind game even after.
I think, you go into surgery and you think, okay, we focus so much on the pain of it. So, okay, it may or may not. Everyone is different. You might come out of surgery. And for me, thank God, I woke up the next day after my total hysterectomy. And it was the first time since I was 12, before I got my period, where I felt quote unquote normal. My pain was gone. And I say this and I bring this up because there are a lot of people who think that when you go into surgery and then come out, that your quality of life, you're going to start this brand new life and everything's going to be fine. And I don't think there's enough talk about, you could get quality of life back, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be 100%. And so the expectation, that is something to grieve, because this is what you're thinking. And then it doesn't happen. And so then that's another thing that just puts you into a depressive state.
Yeah, that was hard for me, especially because, of course, there's that timeline that you get in your guide before you have surgery of, oh, you can go back to work after 2 weeks. I was like, 2 weeks? I went back to work after 9 weeks. 9 weeks. And then even after that, every single period for the rest of the year, I had to call off of work every month. So that's where I was, okay, something else is wrong with me, because 2 weeks I couldn't even, my dad, every time I woke up, had to lift me up for the first week after surgery. So that's where every time I saw my surgeon, I even saw him to get another extension for work because I couldn't go to work. And then I was like, what's wrong? It's still bad. My first period after surgery, the flare-up lasted 32 hours. And I was laying in bed and I was like, I'm going to die again. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Like, I think that's another thing, is that learning that everyone's body is different.
Yeah.
And that's something that I didn't realize. And I couldn't even drive after 2 weeks. I could barely go on a 5-minute walk and then not have to, and then sometimes I feel like right when you feel like you're starting to get better, things just hit.
10 steps forward, 5 steps back.
Yeah. And I think also we underestimate robotic, minimally invasive. Everyone, no, this is a major abdominal surgery.
Yeah. Like,
and especially
outside.
Callie and I, we had the hysterectomy, we had our cervix removed. There was also a lot of scare with the rupture of where they took the it's not minor surgery.
It might be called minimally invasive, but let's be honest,
like,
if we put a guy on the table and said, we're just going to do some minimally invasive surgery on your balls, and you can go back to work 2 weeks later, that man would likely be in bed for 3 months bitching, and everybody in the world would have to understand because it's a male. But you put minimally invasive with a woman?
Have you read your op report? I mean, it's not. It's
I get it like every other month, and I still get
You're like scope up your urethra. They put a speculum up your vagina to do it. They have 4 holes in the beginning, just the 4 holes in the beginning.
Yeah.
They might have had 1 or 2 more, and then they
took what out of my belly button?
Wait, and then for 5 hours how was I positioned on my head?
Oh, I didn't even know that until like a year ago. I was like, oh. No,
honestly, I call my surgery the rave party because they turned the lights off, and then my doctor used the fluorescent dye so that she could look through everything. And I was like, oh, so it was a rave, basically. And she was like, yeah, I guess. I was on my head doing party tricks while you guys were doing surgery.
So, it's more than minimally. No, you're fine. It's so funny because people are like, oh, it's minimally invasive. No, I literally had all of my female reproductive organs taken out of me and like not through my vagina.
Yeah.
I wish I could have stayed awake actually, because I would have loved to watch it.
Yeah, when I woke up from surgery, I was just more grossed out of the fact where the surgery was. It made me eerie. I don't like belly buttons. It grossed me out. I remember the nurse was like, do you want to look at your scars? I looked at her, no. And she was like, fair enough. And I was, oh, no. Every time I looked at them, even though it wasn't bad, a line, my ears started ringing. I didn't look at it for like a month after. I got uncomfortable. It's a sensitive subject. Another thing that actually surprised me a lot was the continuation of the mistreatment after I actually have a diagnosis. From every doctor. I remember I went to see my primary doctor and I was walking funny because it was a month after my surgery and I was on my period. And I was like limping a little bit. She was like, oh, sweetie, are you okay? And I was like, oh, yeah, I just had surgery. She goes, oh, yeah, I saw it on your chart. You know, when you have a friend who doesn't listen to what you're saying when you're telling them a story, that's how I feel when I go to the doctor's office. She's like, oh, you had surgery for endometriosis. And I was like, yeah, they found it on my ovaries, whatever. And she goes, oh my God, they removed your ovaries? And I was like, what? Are you the doctor or am I the doctor? Because I'm not. She just wasn't listening. And then she literally goes, why did you get it? Why did you get endometriosis? Yeah.
Well, I was at the, genie came out and I had 3 wishes and I said, you know what? Let's make all 3. I would like to have endometriosis. I would like to have really painful cramps. I would like to pass out every day. That's a question somebody asked you?
Yeah, a doctor. And I was just like, okay.
Can we start asking men why they get erectile dysfunction?
Yes, I'm going to actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk down the street with a microphone and be like, why do you have a penis?
I didn't even know what to say. And then she just kept talking, and I was like, well, I started informing her about endometriosis, like my
It takes
next
up your
period.
entire life. Just, I mean, the
Exactly.
thoughts, it's just awful. So when did you decide that you wanted to get into patient advocacy and start being vocal and getting involved in the community?
It was a couple months after my surgery where I created an Instagram, but I wasn't doing it as much. I wasn't mentally there. I was in a long phase for a year of denial. I was going through some personal stuff where I wasn't putting my health first.
Mhm.
And then I saw my health start to go down.
Mhm.
And then that's when I was like, you know what? Pushing everyone aside, putting myself first.
Good for you.
And that's when I started working on my nervous system and eating better and changing the way I work out. And I was like, I need to talk about this because I do not want younger girls to go through the same thing that I went through, thinking that this is normal,
Mhm.
thinking that painful period causing you to literally cry and have anxiety and faint and throw up is normal. And that's my heart genuinely just wants to get it out there so that girls can see it because I wish I had that.
Yeah.
And for mothers to see it, and for
Mhm.
aunts and dads and everyone to just see it so they're able to know this isn't quite right. My child's experiencing this because I had the best support system, but it took so long because we're not educated on endometriosis. I didn't
No,
hear
not at
about it
all.
until I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
And that was my mom's first time hearing about it. And she was 50 years old. So, how are parents supposed to even help you when they're not educated on it as well?
Mhm.
So, that's why I started talking about it and sharing my journey and things that have helped me and what to do because we're also told really wrong information about it.
Yeah.
I was told that surgery is going to affect my fertility. Meanwhile, if I got surgery, I would have lost my kidney if I didn't get the surgery
Yeah.
in the future.
Why I find it so incredibly dangerous for some of these narratives that we hear a lot. Like a lot of GYNs they don't push surgery. They want you to do the pill because they think that's what is the treatment. While
Mhm.
maybe, yes, it slows down progression. It's not totally cut. It's not stopping it
Oh,
completely
yeah.
and reducing. It's masking your symptoms while there's still silent progression. So that's why I find it very dangerous whenever people are like, why are we doing surgery for endo? First of all, we're not doing enough research for there to be any other option but
It is,
surgery.
yeah.
But also because women are losing organs aside from ovaries, fallopian tubes, cervixes, and uteruses.
Mhm.
I know the appendix, like everyone gets it removed. Like it's not like something, and a lot of people get removed, but endometriosis is wrapped around it. The gallbladder,
Mhm.
kidneys, like there's so much more.
Yeah.
Callie and I talked to someone in DC that had like lobectomies of their lung because of endometriosis, like losing part of your lung because of this
That's
disease.
insane.
It's insane. And I also want to say, when it comes to advocacy and what you're doing, Julia, what Jamie and I are doing, to touch on what you said about there's just so much wrong information out there. I think that it's not just the information that is being mixed up, but it's the language that they're using when they post, and their
Yeah.
intentions are good. I know it comes from a good place, but for instance, Nicole Natar, the founder of Endo Excision for All, royalty, we bow down to you. She sent Jamie and I a post, and it was of a product that helps cramping, but the caption of it said something along the lines of, when you finally find X product to cure your
Mm,
endometriosis. And whenever I see that, whenever Jamie sees that, is a trigger, because that is a problem.
that is a
People out there
problem.
are using the word cure and
Yeah.
endometriosis, and not in the context of saying there is no cure, but saying like this cured, this
Will
cured.
fix. Yeah.
Will,
This
yes,
will cure you. Like,
yes,
no, it
yes.
will not.
So I think
Yeah.
that's the hard part for the community, is that while everyone is trying to educate, there's language that's being used that could
Yeah.
confuse somebody. And
Yeah.
so that is a struggle, and I think part of what needs to change, because if a 12-year-old who's going on to social media and looking up endometriosis, if the first thing they come across, let's say, is that post that says this product
Will cure you.
will
Yeah.
cure your endo, that's the first thing that they're
That's a
going to
problem. Yeah.
associate it
And
with.
let me tell you, if there was something out there,
Yeah.
even if it was the most ridiculous thing, prove it to me and I will do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
why I think it's just so important to be mindful of how you word things because I do the same thing. There's things that I post that this is what helped me, but everyone's body is different because sometimes women message me, what did you do? Why is this better? Whatever. And I'm like, this is what helped me. I advise them to go, excision, not ablation, things like that. But everyone's body is different. So I can't say do this and you're going to feel better because that's not true.
Yeah.
So it's scary when there's people saying this is going to cure you when.
Well, we love that you came on. Thank you for your vulnerability and for telling your story. Thank you for your advocacy and for what you continue to do and sharing the same mission as Jamie and I. We love to end the show with a little rapid fire game.
Okay. Oh, no. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you're good. So I'll do the first question. If your nervous system was a celebrity, who would she be and why?
Gosh. I would say, you guys watched Friends?
Yes.
I would say Ross Geller.
That's good.
Actually,
I
makes
literally
so much sense.
because I love Friends and he's just all over the place. So
That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
gosh.
Great. What is your most unhinged 2 a.m. Google search during the flare?
What is my most? Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to
Is
think of
it?
mine.
I'm trying to think. I feel like I'm preparing to die. Like I'm just like, what? Not in that way. Like what? Like is it
am I
too
going to
late?
die? Here are my
Yeah,
symptoms.
I'm literally asking ChatGPT, what am I supposed to do? Is it too late?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's been many nights where I'm like, all right, this is it.
100. I'm on the toilet the other night.
More
Hot
peaceful,
flash,
or what
stomach
can I
ache.
do?
I was like, this is when I die, and my 2 dogs are going to be starved, and somebody's be like, I haven't heard from Callie, and go check on me.
And they find you with your pants down.
Yep, totally. Which I wouldn't be that'd be a very Callie way to go.
Oh my God.
Okay, what is a wellness trend that you tried that was an absolute complete disaster?
Interesting.
I can tell you one.
What was yours, Jamie?
Juicing.
God.
Literally just straight liquid bowel movements for weeks on end.
My sister and her roommate in college used to do these cabbage soup cleanses. That's all they would eat because it was like the thing to do.
I mean, not only are you probably having horrible diarrhea, but you're having like
your house
terrible
smells
gas in your
like
house
cabbage.
and you smell.
Yes.
I
Is there
feel
any,
like-
Julia, that you hopped on the train and were like, what the fuck?
There's nothing crazy that I've tried. If anything, I just tried to work out in the middle of, I went to a Pilates class because doctors told me exercise more. This is your problem. And I went to a Pilates
Strengthen
class.
your core. It helps with your cramps.
And then my cyst ruptured in the middle of the class.
My gosh. Oh my gosh. You should go and sue that doctor and be like, these were doctor's orders and look this is why I don't work out, you guys.
Oh my gosh.
Nothing good comes out of it.
Nothing.
But even when it happened, I literally just laid there and I was like, this isn't that bad compared to my
Oh my God. My God. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
To trust your gut, because I knew something was wrong. But as a child, you're supposed to trust the adults around you. You're supposed to trust your doctors because that's where you're supposed to go when you need help. And they failed to do that. So I lost trust within myself because I thought that I was the problem.
Yeah.
So if I had one piece of advice is to trust your gut when you know something's wrong, especially physically, get different opinions, do what you have to do because you're going to be right. And we don't need dismissal or gaslighting anymore.
No, we do not. And where can people find you on Instagram if they want to join your advocacy community?
So that's how I sound in my
Just
head
turning into a chicken,
all
guys.
day
Hurry up.
long. That's literally my brain.
Where can they find you if they would like to join your community?
Okay. My Instagram is chronicbeauty.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
What you guys are doing is honestly just amazing. You're changing a lot of women's lives, little girls, adults, everyone. You're genuinely what you're doing is just beautiful. And I just really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I needed
we
to
needed
hear
to hear that.
No, I genuinely mean it because you're healing the inner child in so many women that you don't even know. And I'm sure for yourselves as well. So it just makes me very thankful because you're creating a very safe space for so many women out there that just don't have that within themselves because of what they lost throughout the years or grieving or with doctors or with anything. And this community is so beautiful. And I'm just so happy that it's a thing.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Literally
much.
words.
And
Yeah.
same as it goes for you. I think that anybody who speaks up and is willing to put their story out into the World Wide Web and have it accessible forever because it lives in the cloud is Ooh. What is the cloud? So what you're doing, give yourself a pat on the back as well because
Yeah.
you've
Thank
been
you.
through a lot too and you're putting yourself out there as well, which is helping.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today's episode. Tune in next week for an all new one. Hey,
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
going to the cloud. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Endo Warriors. Don't forget to hit follow, subscribe, and leave a review so other warriors can find us. Tune in next time for an all new episode.